So for our last speaker, Gal Goren, is the head of R&D and operations at the autonomous mobile robots at Intel. And previously, Gal was the CEO of Temi Robotics and spent the last 5 years in China with his family. Now, for our last talk, we're going to do it a bit different. We're going to do it like a conversation. Let's see if I'll manage to work with this Mac. Here you go. Yeah, slideshow. Great. So we're going to have some talks. So welcome, Gal. Yeah. So we have some questions lined up for Gal, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end also for you guys to ask some questions. So Gal, first, can you give us a brief overview of your background and company, and kind of to use as a kickoff for our discussion?
So first of all, thank you, Amit, for inviting me here and not making me prepare a PPT. So in a brief, my journey in robotics started like many things by a chance. I was a terrible student, and after I finished my bachelor degree, I thought that I will never go to the academy anymore, but a few months later, I found myself making my master's. And this was the first time, because I was doing a thesis in the field of autonomous robots, it was the first time that I understood that I like to study. Because I did it in my own time and pace. And from there, my robotics journey began. I was the VP of R&D for 4 years for Roboteam, which making robots for the military segment. And then for 2 years, VP R&D for Temi. Temi is a personal robot that I think that most of you know it goes from any point A to any point B in the indoor environment, providing services. And after 2 years developing Temi here in Israel, we thought that the technology actually might work. And then I found myself on a plane with my wife and 3 kids to the most amazing adventure of my life, spending 5 years in China, preparing to meet the R&D process with readiness for manufacturing. Fast forward, in China, we had about 100 people. Most of them are engineers from all the discipline. All the R&D center moved to China. 2 mass production lines, manufacturing robots for 30 countries around the world.
Amazing. So, your experience gives you quite the perspective. Can you share some of the key differences between defense, consumer, commercial robots from product perspectives, technology, go-to-market?
First of all, I think that both of them are different types of nightmares. The military robotics is it's totally different from the consumer robots. In the military robotics, you have long cycles. It means that the customers are asking for something that is very, very specific, nothing, it's not general. They are definitely not sensitive to price. So you have the privilege to use very, very expensive components. But by the end of the day, you have a customer that needs something to be ready 2 years or 3 years from now with very, very detailed spec. And as a small startup, you need to invest whatever you have in a specific tender, or in the US, for example. So it's 0 or 1 sometimes. For consumer robotics, it's totally different. It's totally different game. Being price sensitive, it means that you need to do a lot of compromises in the hardware and component selection, and to make up with a very smart algorithm, software, and service in order to deliver what you promised to deliver, and in order to be competitive cost-wise.
So how do you think the move to China actually contributed to your company's success, and do you think it was crucial?
Definitely, yes. I think that, you know, we are always saying that in Israel, we are very good doing things from 0 to 1. Most of the companies that are doing hardware are doing 0 to 1. And we didn't know how to go from 1 to 100. For us, it was very difficult. We didn't have the expertise. We didn't know. We learned along the way, what does it mean? And moving to China, specifically to Shenzhen. Shenzhen today, I think, is the Silicon Valley of China. In the high-tech zone of Shenzhen, there are about 4,500 startups, technology startups. And Shenzhen was a great place because within 1 hour, 1 hour radius drive from our office, we had 100% of the supply chain, which is unbelievable. Okay, and you know what does it mean, robotics, right? It's plastic parts, CNC, wiring, cabling, motors, drivers, PCBAs, optics, sensors, everything within reach. And the way that things are moving in China are so fast that it was crucial for our development process. You're making a new design to the PCBA, and you have it after 7 days. Okay, it's unbelievable. And I think the key advantage was when we already had thousands of customers around the world and things are happening, and you know that you need to react fast and to do changes, it enabled us to do things very, very rapidly and to learn a lot regarding how to do mass production and how to be reliable enough in a complex system.
Yeah, that's amazing. Be really agile in hardware, I guess. You know, what is your biggest failure story you can share with us, and what did you learn from it?
We agree that you will not ask this. I think that as a CEO, after you know, dealing with the hurdles of the start of setting a team and bringing the R&D department to a functioning department and setting the supply chain and manufacturing and so on and so on, one of the things that I was dealing most of the time is raising money for the company. At the first 2.5 or 3 years before COVID, I succeeded, certain success. We raised about 40 million USD in China. But as you know, robotics startups are burning money very, very fast. The burn rate is high, especially when you have a mass production line involved. And the biggest failure of, as I see it, after meeting more than 60 investors in 2021 and 2022, I failed in this mission. And once you are short with money, it implicates immediately on the headcount, on your ability to add more features to the product, and so on. And I think that as a CEO, it was my biggest responsibility.
Yeah, it's difficult to raise money for this industry. From your experience, what are the biggest misconceptions about robotics?
I think that people that are not coming from this industry think that making simple tasks by machine, it's simple. And, when they see a vacuum cleaner and, the next question is, why doesn't it making a coffee, right? And why this machine cannot fold my clothes, and so on and so on. I think that this is the biggest misconception. Like what we see today, amazing robots like Boston Dynamics that dancing and making loops in the air. We all understand that this robot cost a few hundreds of thousands of USD, right? In order to make tasks in the consumer area, you are very, very limited in price. And when you are very limited in price, your ability to make tasks in a perfect way is almost impossible. And I think that today, the consumer robotics industry in general, I think, we are not there yet. It will take few more years in order to bring to the audience, to the users, a good experience of robots that provide you service. It will take time. We will be there at some point. And I think that this is the biggest misconception because it's just not easy.
I absolutely agree. Every time I see Boston Dynamics video, I'm getting excited. Then after that, I'm saying, oh, they're going to ask me why it's like that. What do you think about robot manipulation? How achievable or affordable can it be in the foreseeable future?
So I think I refer to it right now. I think that it will take a lot of time to do it in a effortless and a seamless way. We see companies that are approaching and they're doing some amazing things, but in order to get the cost down, it will take time, especially when we are talking about manipulation. Manipulation means more controls, more motors, more algorithms, more sensors from different aspects, and it all adds up to more complex processing and more costly machine. So I think I'm optimistic, but it will take a few more years until we will see something that providing real value for the consumer. I'm not talking about industry and backstage robots, which are not sensitive to which are less sensitive to the cost.
Right. Absolutely agree. I think one of the last question is, what do you think were the key factors that helped your company succeed? And do you think you can give any tips for any founders here or entrepreneurs who are looking for doing something similar?
I think that when I reflect back about what was the biggest enabler for us to be able to bring robots to mass production and worldwide distribution, of course that I was fortunate enough to work with great talents in Israel, in USA, and in China. But specifically in robotics, money talks. There is no way, I think, to be able to come up with a functional prototype, to be able to come up with more feature and to show something to investors and even, to take it further without significant amount of money. Dealing with robotics, it means that you need engineers from all the disciplines, mechanical engineers, electronics, optics, algorithms, software, cloud, security, safety, not to mention later design for manufacturing, design for assembly, and it's very costly. So if I would need to start a startup now, let's say that we have a small amount of money, I would, sorry? Yes. You know, I always say to my father, I asked him, why didn't you tell me to go to study programming? But if there is a small amount of money, I would make sure that I'm not trying even to invest it in a prototype that's supposed to do what the end product is doing. For sure. I would invest it in a very, very basic concept, and I would stand on the stage and try to sell the dream as much as possible. Because I think that it is very, very hard, and I'm working with few startups in Israel and in abroad, and I see how much it is frustrating to know what you want and not to be able to execute it, only because the day-to-day is expensive. So I would try to sell the dream as much as possible.
Sell the dream, like it. So the last thing is, do you have any topic or question that kind of you want to raise to tell people here?
I think that I definitely think that robotics is the future. I think that we see the great leap in AI, and since hardware is always coming late, always lagging behind, we will see it. And I definitely think that robotics will play a bigger part in our near and far future in the day-to-day lives. It's not going to be tomorrow, it's not going to be next year, probably not in the 5 years. My projection is 10 years and north, but we need to start somewhere. And the hardware is getting there, the sensors becoming cheaper and more sophisticated, providing more and more data, which will reduce the price significantly and provide better performance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We might have time for 1 or 2 questions from the audience. I had enough already.
What's your experience
I'm embarrassed to say that I was 5 years in China, but I speak non-Chinese. My 2 youngest kids are speaking fluent Mandarin. But being in China, it's like, for me, it was like living in Mars. Think about it, you know, you basically understand 10 to 15% regarding what's happening around you day to day. So what I did is the first employees that I recruited, the first line of managers were able to speak English. And the second and third line, you know, I was I was being translated, but it's part of this adventure.
Thank you so much.